The relationship, obviously, between Tom and Isabel is very beautiful. Can you describe the relationship, and what does The Light Between Oceans say about the enduring power of love?
Well, this story begins with Tom. He comes back from the First World War. He comes back to Pas-de-Jeux, and he's gonna go and take this job as a lighthouse keeper, kind of to get away, to not hurt anyone else anymore. But on the way, he meets Isabel, the character I play, and they fall in love, and she's kind of the opposite of what he's become through his experiences, in the sense that she's so full of life and energy. And of course everyone kind of also bonds and connects during this time, because it was almost like a whole generation that was wiped out. But it's so she can of course see and understand partly, the loss that he's gone through and what he's seen, but wants to kind of bring him back. And she's a very initially just, I don't know, she's very transparent. You can kind of read her initially, and sometimes she can do things and say things without thinking, but you can't really blame her, because it all kind of comes from an initial loving place, place of just pure heart.
The film has been described as a timeless love story. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it feels like it's quite old-fashioned, in the sense that that's not really, one good or bad side. It's real people and emotions, and everyone's extremely kind of leveled, and it's a story about the love between, it's not only about partners, but also between children and parents and friends, and about what you do for pure, emotional survival, and the different longings to find love and to start a family. And
hence timeless. Yeah. Can you speak to how the film puts forth the idea that love and hope can get you through the most challenging of times?
I think, yeah, I think that's the last thing that you cling on to is hope, and to have that you need to kind of have a belief in goodness, and with that I think a belief in love, and I feel like that's something that makes them so, they all are pure kind of fighters. I think every single character in this film, they're very human. They maybe not make the best decisions or the morally right ones sometimes, but it's really just from a longing of love.
What does the film mean to you on a personal level, and how did the characters' journeys affect you?
Well, the first time I read the script, I did tear up. Felt extremely close and humane. I love that, and it made me go back and read the book, that of course is, an even more in-depth version of our film. And I love that I kind of, maybe going back, sometimes it feels like this film feels old-fashioned, because it was a long time when I read a book or seen a film when I was thought I was going to choose a side or have a very clear opinion of characters or the story. And I love the fact that this was kind of how normal life is, when you actually get in depth and you get to know the reasons why somebody acts in a certain way, and then you start to relate to it, and you kind of start to see your own actions that you've made, and you know situations when you haven't been proud of decisions you made, even though you were never intended to do something wrong. So I think, and Derek Cianfrance, who's I loved Blue Valentine and The Place Beyond the Pines, and had seen those films before I came on this project, and I love the fact that it always felt like I was almost watching them kind of embarrassed, because it felt like I was in the room. It's almost like I watched something very personal happening in a scene between two people that felt like it was the real story, the human stories that happens in surrounding us in our homes and in in our friends' life and in our own lives, and that makes you really kind of it becomes very emotionally draining. So I think with this film, he once in the beginning mentioned to me that he wanted to make a melodrama, and that's sometimes a word that is has a bit of a negative cling to it, but I think it's because I realized he actually proved me wrong when I've seen the film now. It's because it's one of the most difficult things to make, and I love that he aimed for it, because a melodrama is the pure traditional emotions that became famous because they're also universal, and that I really appreciate that he dared to go for that.
Excellent. How is there, without giving anything away, how is there an unexpected turn in the story?
Well, we find Isabel and Tom, after they fall in love, before he heads out to the island, he ends up bringing her with. So they'll live on this island, and they fall in love and have the wish of starting a family, and sadly they end up losing 2 children, but she gets pregnant again, and before people know that it again is going to end quite very badly, is this boat that washes up on shore in this very remote place, and in there is a dead man and a baby. And then it's the decision to, of course, maybe just call the authorities and, of course, report what you should about this baby that they've found. But then it's the emotional kind of almost religious experience of having this child being brought to them in this situation that they're in.
Sure. Describe how it's a story of good people and not necessarily always making the best choices for themselves, sort of reflecting back on what you said earlier, but if you could kind of address that separately.
Well, it is a film about good people that you relate to and feel for, and that sometimes they don't make the best decisions or the right morally best choices. But I think that is, and I think when you just put with the dilemma in front of you, most people would just know what is right and what's wrong. But as soon as you start to engage with people and realize that every single choice that led up to this dilemma in the end kind of just happened because of pure loving reason, then it's hard to start to judge people, and you can even start to maybe relate to certain facts of it. And I remember when I had read the book, I went in and on this website, very famous one, where it was thousands of comments of people who had read it. And it was so interesting to, that means it's a story that is as universal, that people were as taken away by it that I was. I cried the first time I read the script, and it's because people end up having such different opinions and views, and it's a film that makes people talk and kind of think about their own relationships and families and friends. And I love that a film can bring that much discussion.